Oklahoma scrimmages from their own 8-yard line. Jones drills the ball. Oh, it is intercepted. Amukamara. And he is still on his feet at the 10, inside the 5, and down to the 1.
What's up, Husker Nation? We are back. It is Michigan State week. If you don't know who the hell I am, this is Parks. I'm with Play the Fight Song podcast. If you haven't given it a listen, give it a listen. It is for college football diehards, casuals, whoever you are. If you want to know just general knowledge about college football the week of, give it a listen. It's going to have every piece of information you just needed. We actually just wrapped up recording the Week 10 preview. There's some good games in there. I mean, you got obviously College Game Day being at Alabama, LSU, and then there's 3 or 4 other big ones that we covered. I don't want to give too much away. Give it a listen. It's dropping tomorrow morning, so give that a listen. A Week 10 preview is what it'll be called. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, please do that right now while I'm introing this video, and then we will always have college football content for you. We have Iowa being covered, Iowa State, and I am the Nebraska side. We've already done Northwestern, Purdue, all that good stuff. They're doing pretty good numbers, so if you're back again, I'm glad you're here. Let's talk about the Spartans and the Cornhuskers. Matching up in Week 10 in East Lansing. I imagine the weather won't be great. I don't know the exact weather report, but hopefully it plays into the hand of the very run-heavy Nebraska Cornhuskers, and we can come out with a dub. Full predictions, let's start out with Michigan State and take a look at the schedule that they've had this year. Starting off the year, they started off 2-0, man. This Michigan State team stands at 2-6. They started 2-0. They have lost 6 straight games, and they are 0-5 in the Big Ten. Their 2 wins came against Central Michigan and Richmond. This is a winnable football game for Nebraska. Nebraska stands at 5-3 and 3-2 in the Big Ten. They have a wide open chance at the Big Ten West because it's abysmal. But Michigan State is a very beatable team. Going down the rest of their schedule, let's look at their 6 other losses. They lost at home against Washington, at home against Maryland. Both of them, they got dominated. Then they lost at Iowa and at Rutgers. Both of those games were close. They honestly had a chance to win both of them, but you haven't seen much from either of those 2 teams either because the Big Ten's not good. Then they played Michigan at home and got blanked 49-0. Michigan's been doing that to pretty much everybody, so don't look too far into that. But then Minnesota on the road, they lost last week 27-12, and we'll talk about that game in bits and pieces because we have a similar play style to Minnesota. I don't want to say we're a similar team because I do think we're better, and if we got a chance to play that game again, I think we would beat Minnesota 100%. On the offensive side of the ball, let's take a look at some injuries on the Michigan State front. They're a little injury-ridden, just like Nebraska. Trey Mosley just went down last week. That's one of their better wide receivers, a senior wide receiver. He just got hurt against Minnesota. He got a head injury. They said he's day-to-day. I don't know if he'll be back. It didn't sound like when their interim talked in their interview where he was talking over the injuries, like he thought anybody I'm going to name is going to be back. Now, would it be the most Nebraska thing ever for these guys to come back and make an impact? And I don't want to say it because I hate saying it, but beat Nebraska? Yeah, it would be the most Nebraska thing ever, but we're starting to get away from that 1-score loss, Mike Riley, Scott Frost era history. So let's continue that. Noah Kim, their starting quarterbacks week 1 through 5, has been out for the past month. He got benched originally. Then they said it was due to injury. So I'm not really sure which one it is, but I am highly doubtful, and so is their coach, that he will be back for this week. I think it's going to be one of 2 guys that are both freshmen, and we'll dive into both of those. But on the defensive side of the ball, they have a couple injuries as well. Darius Snow's the big one. He's still doubtful. He'll probably play the last couple of games of the year, reserve a redshirt status, and they'll keep him. But one name I did forget to mention on the offensive side of the ball, tight end Malik Carr. They don't know if he's injured or if it's a punishment, why he would not play in this game. But he's day-to-day as well. That might be the one name that I think you could see this week, unless it was an off-field issue. But let's dive into the rest of their offense. Looking at the 2 quarterbacks, you have 2 options. You have quarterback Caden Hauser, who's a freshman who's 51 for 89 for 509, 2 picks and 2 scores. He didn't play last week, so I don't know if he's injured as well. I didn't see him on the injury report, but that doesn't mean he couldn't have something nagging him because last week, the other quarterback who I think will start, this should be the name that you should see, is Sam Levitt. Levitt was 14 for 21 for 114, a touchdown and 2 interceptions last week against Minnesota. He's serviceable. It's very similar stats to Heinrich, and I don't think that they would make a move back to another quarterback. They're going to kind of let Levitt get the reps and gain that game experience without letting him get to 4 games. So I think Levitt will be the quarterback for Michigan State this weekend. And then at the running back position, this is kind of the only, I don't want to say it, but star on their stat sheet. He ranks 3rd in the Big Ten overall in rushing yards. So that's why I want to call him that. 141 carries, 609 yards, 4 scores for Nate Carter. Nate Carter will be the starting running back at Michigan State. He's a guy who likes to get to the edge. He's got a little bit of speed, but he really hasn't blown up the stat sheet because this Michigan State offense hasn't blown up the stat sheet. Not to say that much because neither have we, but those are the two. That's who's going to be in charge of the backfield this weekend will be those two. At wide receiver on the outside, the name to mention, Torrey Foster Jr., 29 receptions, 340 yards, and a touchdown. He's been pretty good for him this year, man. That's not anything that's going to jump off the paper either, but neither do our wide receivers. Like, both offenses in this game are not very good. They're not very stat driven, but Nebraska's gotten it done where obviously Michigan State hasn't. So that's a huge benefit for the Black Shirts again this week, who have shut pretty much everybody down up to this point. I think they have another opportunity to do it this weekend in East Lansing. Let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball for the Spartans. 2 names that you should definitely watch out for. The defensive side of the ball for the Spartans is led by Cal Holiday. Holiday is an absolute stud. He's definitely a guy that you've heard his name the last couple of times Michigan State and Nebraska have matched up. He's always made plays against us. He's smart. He's experienced. He's listed as a junior. I want to say he's actually a senior. That's just a COVID year that they didn't list. But he's all over the place, man. 59 tackles, 23 of those are solo. He's got a sack, a fumble recovery, a pick, and a touchdown this year. So that will probably be the biggest and most highlighted name on their defense. And the defensive backfield, I want to say that Angelo Gross is probably the best defensive back that they have. 23 solo tackles, 42 of them total, 5 pass breakups and 2 picks. He's probably their best defensive back. It's pretty similar stats to our defensive backs when it comes to the top of the top. Quentin Newsom and Tommy Hill obviously have some skewed numbers over the last couple of weeks as they're rolling on, but we'll get into our defense later. Those are the 2 names I want to highlight on the defense. Now let's take a look at the team, and this is where I'll start to compare Nebraska by team stats and kind of what you can get. Hopefully you get a sense of the game and the pace that it's going to be, because I think it's going to be one of those slow-moving pace games, 11 a.m. on a Saturday. It'll be cold. Grab your nice warm coffee because it's going to be probably – I'd put this at a 98% 0-0 at the end of the first quarter unless we turn the ball over the first play of the game again. So, team stats, points per game for Michigan State, 18 points per game versus our 19.5. I think that kind of tells you why the line is where it is. It's at 3 in favor of Nebraska, who's a road favorite for the first time, I want to say, in a while. But no, I think we were favored at Colorado. I don't remember. But either way, it's been a long time since we've been a road favorite, and I've actually been hopeful for what we can do. They convert 35% of their third down chances. That's just under the average tick in the Big Ten. I think that number is going to go down because the Black Shirts have been legit as they have been. And then 40% on fourth down. I actually think Michigan State goes on fourth down more often than not. I mean, they're 6 for 15 on the year. I don't know the total number of times Nebraska has gone for it on fourth down, but 15 to me seems like a lot, right? Like 6 for 15. I can't remember 15 times this year where Nebraska's gone for it on 4th and 1. But anyway, that 40% clip. They have a better fourth down conversion rate than they do third down. And I think it's just because the skew size. But 13 sacks allowed by their offensive line this year in Michigan State. That is to Nebraska 17. It's a better offensive line than us. It's more experienced, but I don't think they have a better quarterback than us. And that's saying a lot because I don't think Heinrich is going to blow anybody out of the water. But they've only allowed 13 sacks this year. I think it's going to be a huge piece for Nebraska's defense to be able to get in there, create pressure, and force these young quarterbacks into bad decisions. So that's what I'm hopeful for. I think that will be super beneficial when it comes to winning on the scoreboard, is us pressuring the quarterback. Now, we've had some young guys that can do that too. I think Lenghart can have a big day. I think Prince Will can have a big day. And Nash has been great. He's got to be a force in the middle, as he has been. On the offense side of the ball, they average 108 yards a game rushing and 214 passing. It's flip-flopped from Nebraska. Nebraska averages over 190 yards a game on the ground and only 130 through the air. I would say Nebraska is obviously a little bit more balanced, but what you're going to see from Michigan State is kind of similar to what we thought we were going to see and what we saw from Purdue, where they threw the ball 35 times. Nebraska's got to defend it. It comes down to Nebraska's secondary making plays, creating turnovers, and that's when they'll find another week of success on the defensive side of the ball. Turnover margin for Michigan State, -7, and then Nebraska's -9. So both these teams don't do well in that area. I think it's incredible that Nebraska's 5-3 with a -9 turnover margin. I think Rule touched on that earlier in the week, but it's just a crazy stat to take a look at. Michigan State fumbles the ball not nearly as much as us, but they lose more than we do. Michigan State's fumbled the ball 12 times this year, and they've lost 9 of them. We fumbled the ball 23 times and lost 11 of them. So the ball could be on the ground. The turnovers are going to be out there. It's just who's going to win that battle. Last week, Nebraska got beat in that battle, but still won the game handily. So God knows if that actually could speak to the end of the game or the result. So, all right, let's dive into the Purdue defense a little bit more and kind of how we can attack as an offense. And then I'll roll into what Nebraska's offense needs to do to find success this week. Purdue's defense ranks 9th in rush defense in the Big Ten. There's only 14 teams. That's not very good. And Nebraska, when they can find the run game, usually finds success and wins the football game. So that's going to be the main key. Nebraska has to establish a ground game with Emmett Johnson. I think Anthony Grant has to play a bigger role this week. I think it'll be kind of split carries. I think Emmett took like 70% of the reps last week. I would hope they split them a little bit. I think those guys are getting banged up because they are playing so many snaps more than the other. And I wouldn't say they're completely separate. I think Emmett has an edge in talent, but I want to get the stigmatism off Anthony Grant's back that he fumbles the football a lot, because he truly does not. And he's a good running back. They both bring different skill sets. I think Emmett's more of a little bit more of a downhill runner, and Grant's more of a side-to-side shifty back, but they both have upside potential, and I hope we see them both this week pretty often. The passing side of things, obviously, we have some work to do. We've had big plays the last couple of weeks on belly G option passes, but Michigan State leaves a big hole in this area. 13th pass defense in the Big Ten. There's only 14 teams. That's almost as bad as worse as it can get. I mean, there's going to be opportunity here. I think Fedone running down the middle of the field is going to play a big part. When I went back and I watched Michigan State, Minnesota beat him twice in big plays, both over the middle of the field, one to a tight end, one on a post route. I think Satterfield will know that. I think that when we do take deep shots, it will be to the middle of the field. I think Fedone can have a big day on this, and then both of our young, fast wide receivers, both Jalen Lloyd and Jaden Doss, can benefit in this area. So that's where I think Nebraska can take a stride and take a next step, is taking multiple shots downfield, and this is the team to do it against. So I hope I see that this weekend. Other than that, on the offense side of the ball, what does Nebraska need to do? One, don't turn the ball over within the first 45 seconds of the game. Guess what Minnesota did? Turn the ball over within the first 45 seconds of the game. They found themselves down 3-0. I think if we do what we've been doing the last 2 weeks, where we turn the ball over within the first minute and then somehow, some way get a stop, I don't think we'll come away with no points in that scenario this week. Michigan State's kicker's good. I forget his first name, but his last name's Kim. He's money. He's like 80+% from 45 and in. So it's going to take a lot from this Nebraska defense to force zeros. That bend don't break mentality that we kind of had makes me a little nervous, because I think Michigan State will take the points and force our offense to create points. But our defense has been good, so there's no reason for me to believe that we can't make those stops or make those plays to then create the no-point situations. But at the end of the day, you can just not turn the ball over and you don't have to worry about it. Am I crazy for saying that, right? Just don't turn the ball over. It's easier sitting in this chair saying that than it is out in the field getting hit like that. But we turn the ball over less, we'll find ourselves in better situations. Other point, offensively, I think that we need to benefit more from running outside of the tackle. Minnesota did that last week. Sean Taylor had a couple of big runs outside the tackle. I think that Emmett can do that. I think he has a little bit more of a skill to do that, where he can run downhill outside of the tackle and cut up field and use his speed. I think he has a little bit more speed than Grant. But that's a huge benefit for Nebraska. I think that's where they can expose this defense, through the middle and outside the tackle runs. So I hope both of those things happen, and I think we'll find success doing those things. Defense. The one side of the ball Nebraska deserves all the recognition on is the defensive side of the ball. Nebraska ranks second in Big Ten in rush defense. And Michigan State doesn't run the ball entirely well, but like I said, they have a pretty good back there. I think Nate Taylor could have a big day if we don't remain ourselves. Like, I think Nash obviously sets the tone in the middle, but I think we can benefit from blitzing these young quarterbacks too. I think defensively, we need to run those zero blitzes, bring Sherman off the edge, bring Reimer off the edge, make these backs pick up those blitzes, those multiple look blitzes, and make these young quarterbacks throw under pressure. If we do that, we will force turnovers. We will find ways we will find ourselves in a very good situation if we can pressure the quarterback. That's as flat out simple as it can be. And you could say that in most games, but in particularly with two freshman quarterbacks with less than 25 throws under their belt in college, you can find extreme success when you put pressure on them. So that is the main point for Nebraska this week. If we pressure the quarterback, we will be successful and win this football game handily. If we don't, we're going to be in trouble. I'm serious. This Michigan State team's not good, but they're good enough to beat us if we do our normal Nebraska thing. Granted, we've gotten better at that, and I think Rule will have the boys ready to go. It's obviously a meaningful game for us as fans, but even think of the players that have been here for 2, 3, 4 years even. Luke Reimer, Quentin Newsome, Tommy Hill. It's going to be either their last chance or one of their last chances to make a bowl game, and you can just cement it here and not have to worry and just play balls out and trying to win these last 3 games and somehow end up winning the West because that's what it could be. But this means a lot to us. This game does, and I think we can get it done. I think we do get it done. I think Nebraska wins this game 21-13. I don't see the defense giving up more than 13 points if we don't turn the ball over. Just offensively, obviously, I still have my questions. We got to hit a couple of big plays. Our special teams need to be splendid again. I think Ed Foley's done a great job at that, but they need to continue to be. But I think Nebraska gets it done on the road in this spot. I think it's going to be the first time in a while where we feel honestly good at where we're at, because it's fun right now because we're having fun winning and the boys are having fun playing. So we're in a good spot, and I think Nebraska gets it done this week. It's a big one, and I appreciate you being here. We'll catch up after the game, and we'll recap it. Hopefully I'm right, and we get another dub.